This is the life cycle of a lot of portrait photographers' lighting equipment. You might start out with umbrellas because they're cheap and easy to find, and then you progress onto softboxes because you need that little bit more control of the lighting. But then eventually you might come back to umbrellas because they're cheap, easily replaceable, and you've learned how to get the most out of them. I picked up 5 43-inch umbrellas so I can make a direct comparison of the light output that they have, the pattern that they cast out, and the quality of light they produce for a portrait. We have an impact 43-inch white translucent umbrella that you can use as a shoot through or as a bounce. We have a Fotodiox white shoot through box that has a white interior. Then there's an impact silver umbrella with a textured interior, a Fotodiox silver bounce umbrella with a built-in diffusion material, and a Godox octa which has diffusion material but it holds the strobe inside. This isn't a sponsored video, I just want to pick out 2 umbrellas that I can put in my portable light kit so I can use them on location. Portability and speed of use is key. And of course, I'll be leaving affiliate links for all of these umbrellas in the description below. For any given light that you have, a modifier is likely to eat up some of the light that it produces. I'm using this 200 watt constant LED light for the comparison tests, and a light meter placed 2 feet away from the closest part of the modifier, and that includes the protruding stem if it's sticking out. The meter gives a reading in f-stops. The brighter the light, the smaller the aperture needs to be to maintain an exposure. So a really bright light would stop the aperture down to something like f22, and a really dim light would need the aperture opening up to f1.2. So higher f-stops mean that you're getting more light. This light with a bare bulb will give a meter reading at 2 feet of f11 and 1/3, and that's with the camera set to ISO 400 and 125th of a second. With all the umbrellas, I'll slide them on so that the umbrella edge is in line with the position of the LED. All of the distances that I measure are either from the front of the umbrella or from the tip of the stem to make sure that there's no equipment in the frame. The white translucent umbrella is the simplest of all the umbrellas, and when you use it as a shoot through, it gives a meter reading of f5.6 and 1/3. That's 2 stops less than the power of the naked bulb. A lot of light reflects out the back of the umbrella into the room, bouncing around, eventually back to the subject from different directions. In a small room, this will be strong enough to lighten the shadows. You might want this for a flattering portrait, but not so much if you want things dark and moody. In a portrait with a modifier 2 feet from the subject, the transition from light to shadow is soft and the contrast is relatively low. That's the stray light bouncing around the room. With the white translucent umbrella, we can flip the umbrella around so that the bulb is pointing away from the subject and we're bouncing light back in. By keeping the light equipment out of the frame, the umbrella's further away from the subject, so we expect to lose power, and we do. The meter reads f4. That's a stop and 1/3 less than using it as a shoot through. Even though we're losing light with it set up like this, there is one advantage. When we're using this umbrella as a shoot through, and we're not using a boom arm, we're just using a standard light stand, we can't point the light down, we can only point it up. As a bounce umbrella, we can now point it down at our set, and that's quite useful for portraits. With the LED now pointing its light at the room instead of at the subject, we're getting a low contrast image. The lower contrast is because of the lighter shadows, and that can be quite flattering for a portrait. The shadows aren't as dark as they can be with other modifiers. The shoot-through umbrella is a lot like the white translucent, except it has a cover at the back, which should help control the spill and bounce light back that otherwise would have been lost out of the rear of the umbrella. Look how dark the area behind the umbrella is. Unlike the regular shoot-through white translucent, we can feather the edge of this modifier, almost like you could with a regular softbox. With this one we get a reading of f5.6 and 1/3, the same as the regular white umbrella. I thought the white material at the back of the brolly would help cast more light onto the scene, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Though it could be that the different manufacturers use different materials. What happens if we try and prevent all of that light escaping back into the room? Well, that's the job of the silver reflector. It's going to bounce all of that light back towards the subject. More so than one with a white interior, though I've not got one of those here to show. There's a distinct boundary between the light at the front of the modifier and the shadow behind, meaning we can feather the light by rotating it on the stand. You can't do that as easily with the regular white umbrella. The meter reads f5.6 and 1/3. I'm sensing a pattern here. With the umbrella further away, we're getting the same light intensity at the meter, so the umbrella is more efficient. The portrait we create is more contrasty and moody than with the regular white umbrella. Darker shadows because there's less light bouncing around the room. The highlights are brighter because the umbrella is more efficient, but the silver lining tends to create small hot spots on the shiny areas of the face. These are the specular highlights. Anything that can glisten will glisten. So how can we prevent that from happening? You can get diffusion covers for that silver umbrella, but this silver reflected softbox has one built in. Is the diffusion worth it? Well, firstly, we do lose some light power. It's f4 and 2/3 at the meter. 2/3 stops less light than we've got from the other umbrellas. We're still controlling the spill of the light. We're not getting light escaping out of the back of the umbrella. Diffusion helps even out those small hot spots that the silver umbrella had. They're usually on the nose and other shiny parts of the face, and it's at the expense of a bit of power. Lastly, we have the Octabox. It's a lot like the bounced silver softbox umbrella, except that we don't have the stem sticking into the image. Instead, the light goes inside the modifier. It looks so much tidier than using a regular umbrella. And it's 1/3 of a stop more efficient than the silver softbox, with a meter reading of f5.6, but it's got some drawbacks. It's way more faff to set up than the umbrella, and it's more expensive, and I wouldn't keep a constant light on in there for a long time because it tends to heat up. That's not as much of a problem for flash units though. And there's the advantage that you could fit an egg crate to the front, which would further reduce light spilling from the sides. Even though this light modifier is more efficient than the silver softbox umbrella, you get a very similar result. The contrast isn't that different. These different umbrellas give you different combinations of light efficiency and the control of spill. The spread of efficiency wasn't as large as I'd expected, but using the white umbrella as a bounce demands more light from your strobe, or opening up your aperture compared to the other umbrellas, which between them had similar outputs. Umbrellas with black outer material are great for feathering light and preventing light from bouncing around the room. There are some variations with how this light is cast from the modifier, and again, the regular white umbrella is the odd one out, casting light both in front and behind it. If I were to pick two of these modifiers for my location kit, and I am picking two of these modifiers, I would get the white translucent as a shoot through for those bright and airy portraits, and then it's a choice between the Octa and the silver softbox to create a more dramatic image. And although the Octa is slightly more efficient with its light, the silver softbox is easier to set up and break down quickly on location, and it's less than half the price. Which umbrella would suit your photography best? Let me know in the comments below, along with any alternatives you think I should include next time.